Alright, time for another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com also, video presentation. But the debate kind of does suck, in terms of being reasonable, argument, counter-argument kind of style, blah, blah, blah. It's a mess, okay, like that. It's a mess. Just noise. You can't get people to stay on the subject, answer the direct questions, and in some way explain how it's reasonable, okay, to believe in their dualities, their concepts that are based on, that can only be made rational through some sort of imaginary magical thing. Yeah, some magical substance or mechanism. But anyway, so we'll get to that shortly. Clean up the mess, okay, and get to the direct physics. All right, so I'm claiming that physics has made a couple of gigantic mistakes. Well, 3 or 4 or 5 of them anyway. So gravity is a force. It's not a bent geodesic, whatever that is. It is a push-averse. Things actually have to interact with other things. Real things have to interact with real things for something to happen in the universe. Then quantum mechanics is all based on a perverse interpretation of some two-slit information. And the facts can be gleaned if you examine the experiments carefully. You can understand that there's no way this has anything to do with any kind of wave-particle duality. That the fact is there's something going through the slits. They interact with surfaces, and surfaces cause all of the fringe pattern that is presumed to be magically made by superimposed, entangled magictons. All right, big mistake. And then there's kinetic energy. So this is the vis visa controversy. I can play physicists pointing out that it was 150 years of arguments and disagreement between Newtonians and Leibnizians, okay, or Huygenites. And the fact is, it was a real argument about what motivates the universe. Is momentum the mechanism by which motion in the universe is exchanged, or is motion exchanged through some notion of mv squared? And the simple argument is Leibniz, number 2 in this list, was basically saying that kinetic energy, this in his time mv squared, is the quantity conserved, that the universe always has the same mv squared in it somehow. And obviously, as opposed to the Descartesian notion that what is conserved in the universe is momentum, that you just look somewhere and there's always the same amount of mass moving a velocity. So that product in the universe is always the same. So you can have big things moving slow, or you can have little things moving fast, but it's always the same number, and it's momentum that's always conserved in any interaction. And the first argument is just basically pointing out how ludicrous the kinetic energy theory is right on its face, because it says something that we all can know isn't true. It doesn't take 25 times the force to make something move 5 times as fast. And particularly we'll use a spinning argument, because that defeats any wooey nonsense about relativity and that how the whole universe spins or any of that crap. The fact is, 1 unit of force spins something 1 velocity, as Newton said. 2 units of force spins at twice the velocity. 3 units of force spins at 3 velocity. There's no quadratic need for extra fuel, and there's no quadratic increase in anything called real capacity to move matter in the universe. That just doesn't happen. All right, continuing the argument from context. So through the 150 years of controversy, unfortunately, deriving experimental evidence was always complicated. So the very reason why we quantify energy in the form of a joule, named after whatever his name was, Joule, is because he had this problem of trying to separate fact from fiction in terms of fables, stories about the big fish caught or something, in terms of how difficult it was to quantify exactly how much energy something had. So in his case, he was a brewer and he was interested because he had to buy machinery and he wanted to know what worked better. Was a steam engine more efficient or was the new electric engine more efficient? And he really didn't have a way to test that. Because there was always circumstances like the way springs expand badly and ropes stretch and all kinds of things can happen, all kinds of variables that can screw up experimental results. Bullets fracture bone very easily because of the high velocity. Pointy arrows go deeper into something. Okay, it's a trick. Okay, it doesn't mean it has more energy, and that was the problem. And the problem still exists. So in the 1700s, a rich woman published experiments done by somebody else, essentially, and announced to the world, so to speak, that, oh, here's evidence of. And the experiment was rather silly in the sense that they dropped round things and just dented the surface of clay. And it didn't penetrate through the clay, just dented the surface, and it could be understood that's the same thing as the arrow argument. The shape of an object changes. The circle, is very flat at the bottom, and it's very diagonal on the sides. So it's pushing, just sideways. The deeper it goes through, the more it's pushing sideways, and the less it's pushing down. And you're going to understand pushing down is a disadvantage because when you push down, well, you still have to push sideways to get rid of it, or you build up pressure and stop. So the only way you can relieve the pressure is to push it sideways too. So you have to do both motions of pushing down and pushing sideways. So obviously, not a very credible physics experiment, but it fooled everybody back in 1735 because people weren't very sophisticated in their understanding of dynamics and physics. And frankly, that's all they had. So this is another example of two-slit nonsense. So let's understand the whole thing started with Huygens. Leibniz stole the idea essentially and said, okay, yes, it's mv squared is conserved. And he didn't demonstrate it with any experimental evidence. So he didn't show it taking 25 times the force to move something 5 times as fast or 100 times the force to move something 10 times as fast. Didn't show anything. He just stated that dropping 4 pounds 1 foot is the same impact energy as dropping 1 pound 4 feet. When you can physically understand from what Galileo had figured out, right, 100 years before Leibniz, that those two things have different momentums. They can't do the same. They can't weigh the same because they have different momentums. They can't hit the quarterback the same because they have different momentums. Momentum actually, causes things to move. So it's just a ridiculous, nonsensical statement. And he demonstrated with zero evidence. He just stated it as a fact. And it's not a fact. And physics still hasn't done that experiment, so they still haven't, in a nice clinical scientific way, taken two objects, a one mass going 2v and a two mass going 1v, and proven, that the one mass has twice the energy. Doesn't exist. And they certainly haven't taken the 4 mass going 1v and the 1 mass going 2v and demonstrated the 1 mass going 2v can do the same work as the 4 mass going 1 velocity. So we have no evidence of any of this stuff. And so what there is in physics is these little rickety experiments with little carts with metal wheels. So there's a bunch of angular momentum caught up in the wheel mechanism, hiding the real energy of the object, obviously. Now, a physicist should be able to understand that, yes, wheels collect angular momentum, and the angular momentum isn't seen as linear velocity. So it's extra energy something has in its wheels. And it's true for a car. If a car is going 30 miles an hour, it actually has more momentum than just its mass and its velocity, because it has wheels that are spinning that are essentially flywheels, and they're storing energy, and that will make a difference. So it's obviously, compared to the car, the weight of the car, the wheels don't weigh much. So it's a tiny extra amount, but it's real. Okay, you could probably kill a person with a rotating wheel from a car. No problem. So, you know, these are physics arguments, and nobody will engage in an argument about these real physical phenomena, these real variables that exist. They'll pay no attention. They think friction is actually some sort of force, okay, when it's clearly just you exchanging your motion with something else. So that's all it is. You're just interacting with another surface. The other surface is absorbing your motion, and you are absorbing the other surface's motion. And that's all that's happening in physical interactions. It's an exchange of condition. Two things, red, blue hit, and purple pops out kind of idea. That's the real physics. So again, Leibniz had no evidence, just a statement. Then Deschardelet did some propaganda experiments, silly ones. Another one she did where she dropped something into a pile of sand and then said, the higher velocity thing obviously made sand go further. It didn't move more sand. It just made the sand fly away further because of the higher velocity. So she just measured how many grains of sand went past a certain radius, and then said, yes, the one mass going 4v has the same energy as the 4 mass going 1v because it makes the little sand particles go further. But the fact is the amount of particles moved is exactly the same. Just as if I took bowling balls, for example, and I had a 8-pound bowling ball going 16 miles an hour, and I had a 16-pound ball going 8 miles an hour. The fact is mechanically you can understand, all I can do is exchange the momentum. I can't make the lighter ball have more energy, because as soon as it interacts with a pin, it's only going to exchange its momentum. Nothing else can possibly happen. And the 8-pound ball is going to lose its momentum much quicker. Yes, some pins will go away faster, but in the long run, the 16-pound ball going 8 is going to move just as much mass in the universe. And that's an absolute fact. So none of this should have to be argued. And it's only argued because obviously people have a propensity to be religious kooks. And it's just true for scientists. Scientists are just as susceptible to phantasmagorical wooey theories that feel fun and interesting. They even talk about how much fun it is to be confused and have mysteries. So they're not intrigued by creating a diagram that's rational and simple and even boring. That's not their objective. Their objective is Star Wars nonsense, silly bullshit. All right, and so that's sort of where we are. Leibniz was a religious kook. He believed matter had souls, okay, and he invented notions of solitons and monads, and it was the evolution of a soul, and motion and energy were part of being spiritual, and it's all crystal wooey nonsense. Deschardelet was a big proponent of free will, so not very smart, really. Not very good science, frankly. And so, unfortunately, Thomas Young, who invented the silly wave-particle duality, also was a player in finally burying, the only rational way to understand the universe as momentum, and applied the word energy to describe what was previously expressed as the living force, vis viva. So if you look up vis viva controversy, you can see that for 150 years they debated non-evidence. I mean, in some respects they debated evidence. I mean, some people would mention, well, the law of the lever says momentum is conserved. Kinetic energy isn't conserved. It's really basic. And the car collisions basically prove the law of the lever, in the sense that no matter what you do, you're still going to end up with the same amount of mass moving, velocity, and you can't change that number. that quantity. So I think that's enough of a premise. It's really got to be understood that I've received no argument about the history, no argument about the experiments, the credibility of those experiments, and so we're just really just arguing about the fact that they really haven't improved the experimental pool. Okay, we're in court arguing, and they're supposed to show some kind of evidence, and the fact is they haven't compiled any. They haven't financed the meager budget, few $1,000s physics hasn't spent to drop 4 pounds 1 foot and 1 pound 4 feet, or more specifically, move a 4 mass 1 velocity and a 1 mass 2 velocity and demonstrate that that's the same energy. When clearly it won't work in football, and it won't work in car crashes, it won't work anywhere. It won't be a fact. All right, so in context, Newton's 3 laws are all about momentum in the sense of motion, and he clearly made it clear that he believed momentum was essentially force. That there was a clear equality, not just a proportionality, but a clear equality about the net force being essentially the net change in your momentum. So they correlate to each other perfectly. And so you can change the mass and change the momentum, or you can change the velocity and change the momentum. But the fact is if you're changing both, you'll always conserve the momentum. All right. So I'll read some comments, and in this context where they can't provide any hard, clear, decisive evidence. It's all sloppy, crude. I'm going to throw this up in the air and catch it, kind of I think it weighs more, kind of experiments. Really bad. As is in the title of this video, likely, Steve Mould just made an obscene trespass against good science by, again, just declaring the results of an experiment he didn't do. And he basically declared that levers can't conserve momentum, and that somehow pulleys don't do it either. That somehow you can't convert a 2 mass with 1 velocity into a 1 mass with a 2 velocity. That somehow that won't happen. That the 1 mass can only go 0.4 faster. All right, and he certainly didn't show any evidence that that's true. All right, so that's the context. And so from there, there's a part of me that just says, okay, I'll do this every single video until I get some sort of coherent response to why this evidence doesn't exist. They've had 350 years to prove it takes 25 times the force to spin something 5 times as fast, which is idiotic. It just can't possibly be true. Anybody who's done any work in their life knows that drills don't use 25 times more energy when it's spinning 5 times as fast. It's just an idiotic statement. And the truth is, in every single experiment you can do where you're converting energy from an object of 1 mass and you're going to convert it into an object that's going to be less mass or more mass, in every single circumstance, kinetic energy is not conserved and momentum is. And those are the facts. And they're ignoring those facts to propagandize for silly religious notions. It's a holy ghost in the middle of physics. And it's really stupid and illogical and unscientific in the sense that it just reeks of wooey wishful thinking and some other kind of make-believe. It's full of gremlins and pixies. This is what some group of women in a quilting club come up with as an explanation. Not scientists. Alright, so comments. So there's some pet peanut person. This used to be a one of Farley's fake accounts, this peanut thing. But anyway, in Bruce Uni's experiment, why didn't the lighter object with the higher kinetic energy win? So he's going to just evade, from what I could read so far, the subject. All right. So clearly, you can, Bruce Uni did a series of experiments, and, you have an object that has 4 times the kinetic energy against an object with 1 unit of kinetic energy. They collide, and the kinetic energy demonstrates that it doesn't exist, that there's no actual thing. The moreness doesn't show itself in any way. No evidence of any moreness. If I put a person in between, I'm not going to find that it's 4 times the crushing or any of that. It's not going to happen. All right. When 2 objects interact, the changes in their motion are always equal and opposite. So again, there's no point in saying it. So if you believe Newton's third law, it's a conservation of momentum law. There's no way Newton could have written it if he believed in mv squared. There's no evidence Newton believed in mv squared. Now, there's some evidence Newton believed that you could have anti-momentum, or unmomentum, or negative momentum, whatever those things would be. But that's a different subject than kinetic energy. There's absolutely nothing Newton said to indicate that he thought it took twice the force to move something 1 unit of velocity, or 4 times the force to move 2 units of velocity, or 9 times the force to move 3 units of velocity. He didn't believe that. All right. This has nothing to do with kinetic energy, so it's just idiotic. So there's just no point in having a conversation, right? I mean, clearly, it's 150 years of real controversy. Clearly, whatever you're going to declare as this essence of something's meaning in the universe, it is a clear argument about which one actually does work in the universe. And the argument being made is that there's all kinds of evidence that momentum does work, and there's really no credible evidence that kinetic energy ever shows up and ever does more work. All right, which describes the ability to apply a force over a distance. So this is more baby talk about distances when we know distances don't matter. I throw a baseball in space, and then I say, well, let's measure, distances. So in 1 second, the one I threw twice as fast went twice as far. I throw them off a cliff, all right, and I measure how far they go. Well, one goes twice as far as the other, twice the force, twice the velocity. So no evidence, again, of kinetic energy showing up. But if I roll them and allow friction to take their energy away, okay, and it'll do so unevenly. So I can find lots of ways of pulling the energy out. So this goes right back to the joule argument again. The whole reason why he invented the joule tank was because of the fact that there is such vagueness and an inaccuracy in how the effects of energy are measured. People are in fact fooled by pointy arrows going deeper, and they'll say that pointy arrows have more energy. It's that stupid. All right, and so you're just doubling down on a stupid argument. The argument is why does the thing with more kinetic energy not win the tug of war or win the collision? Why does it fail to demonstrate that it has 4 times the energy? 4 times the ability to do work, and yet it can't do more work than something with only 1 unit of ability to do work. So you just evaded the frickin' subject, as usual. Okay. This has nothing to do with kinetic energy, which describes the ability to apply a force over a distance, like when stretching a rubber band. So again, it's just this idiotic. All kinds of, every one of these mechanisms has a different way of storing energy. And, this distance argument means absolutely nothing in a Newton's cradle. There's no distances being measured of the vibrations passing through the pieces of metal. There's no distances. It's all just rubbish. So it's a non-answer to a simple question. Why does the thing that you're claiming can do more work in the universe, why is it failing dismally to do more work? All right. So he said, I say, what do you mean the lighter block is pulled by a longer proportion of the rubber band in Uriney's experiment? I don't even know why he's bothering to answer it, because it's an idiotic statement. Slinky springs, whatever it is, they don't compress unevenly, then they don't expand unevenly. So it's just baby talk again. This may be the most important part. No, it's just made up idiotic nonsense. It has nothing to do with reality. Okay, say example of a flywheel. A flywheel does not give its energy more this way than that way. If it's hitting something going up or it's hitting something going down, it's going to give the energy away just the same. So it's just absolute crap. All right, you know how the blocks don't collide in the midpoint. Again, doesn't matter. We know what their velocity at the point of the collision is. That's the argument. Who cares how they got the velocity? Irrelevant. We know the collision is, the rubber band is not applying any force at the time they collide. At the time they collide, the rubber band is completely expanded. It's lost all of its energy. Okay, it's completely relaxed. It has nothing to do with the collision. Absolutely nothing. And all you have is one block going 1 unit of velocity, another block in this case going 1/4 of that velocity. So a 4 velocity and a 1 velocity colliding. That's all you have. I mean, this is so evasive. All right. This is twice the distance from the one mass comparison to two mass. So again, it doesn't make any difference. We're talking about their actual masses and their actual velocities at the point of their collision. Okay. The center of mass divides the system into two separate parts, says you. Okay. Baby talk, made up crap. We know exactly what their velocity are. Just when you drop something in gravity, you know exactly what its velocity is at impact. Gravity isn't, created some sort of mechanism, or there's no mechanism. There's just a velocity. That's all there is. Okay. No matter. All right. The center of mass. Okay, we don't care. No matter or energy goes across the point during the acceleration. So we know they, of course, got accelerated. We know that, of course, they have a velocity. So this is all, again, just a huge whitewash, huge evasion of the subject, huge straw man, bullshit. All right. So we might as well treat the two parts completely isolated. So, again, irrelevant. On the one side is the one mass block. There is twice the amount of rubber band. Again, the rubber band is irrelevant at the time of collision. The rubber band is not applying any pressure or any force at all. It's irrelevant. In the car crashes done by the Mythbusters, the cars were on their own. They got accelerated and then let go. There was no constant force. Liar, cheater. Oh, God, these people are so dishonest. All right, the energy was needed to give the one mass block equal momentum. So, again, more nonsense. And is now twice the ability to stretch the rubber band or do some other kind of work. So, again, says you, the question is why doesn't it win the collision? Why doesn't it win the tug of war? If it has 4 times the energy, why can't it win? All right, that shows the difference between momentum and there's no difference. You haven't shown anything, okay? You didn't demonstrate anything, and you completely evaded the simple question. If it has 4 times the energy, it should be able to demonstrate it with doing 4 times the motion. It should push the collision. How come it fails to do that? All right, so here he does it again. When you're in a paired blocks with an immovable object, well, obviously it was one block, yeah. A one mass block with an immovable object, it gained twice the velocity in comparison to pairing it with another one mass block. So this is just obvious. You can just look at the video. Clearly the truth. Let's see what he says. With the same energy in the rubber band, question mark. Yeah, he pulled them apart exactly the same. He pulls 1 meter. That's his whole shtick. Okay, so he pulls them a meter apart. All right. I don't think it did. So it says you. So I'm not going to play the video just for you. Feel free to share your analysis. I already did. I already showed the video. Okay, and it's clear The one mass block, just as it, again, it's just as clear as it is with levers and all these other objects, but I'm just saying it's clear. One mass moving 100 miles an hour, two masses moving 50 miles an hour. Same fucking thing. Twice the mass, half the velocity. And with the block experiment, it goes even further. It just keeps demonstrating that truth, that you always have the same mv in the system. So you start off with one block, then you double the mass, essentially. And now you have two blocks going half the velocity. Then you can have three blocks going a third the velocity. And you can have four blocks going a quarter the velocity. Four mass with an average of 1/4. Okay. Physics has never done these experiments. So this, I don't even know why you would even bring this up unless you're going to say, I agree completely, they really should fix this. I mean, it's idiotic that the Mythbusters had to crash a car, that nobody had even done anything like that before. That we have no tug of war experiments, we have nothing. Absolutely nothing. We don't even have Joule tank. So somehow Joule had a great idea and they've never used it ever since. So for 200 years, there's this idea that, well, yeah, you can, heat water and turn all of something's energy into heat. And then you can measure how much energy it has. And they haven't bothered. Physics hasn't made a Joule tank. The simplest form of experiment that proves you completely wrong is a collision of two objects. So this is idiotic. These have been done by people like Newton. So again, liar. Physics educators, that doesn't mean anything. And amateur YouTubers. Well, where? I've said before to you, post a link. Post me a link to your good evidence of any of this nonsense. And you won't do it. Okay, all of the results agree with mainstream physics. So this is so much lying propaganda that I shouldn't even read it. I mean, that's absolute a lie. That's just an absolute lie that these experiments exist. Liar. We don't even have that simple lever experiment, for fuck's sake. Okay, the one that the what was his name? I have to think. Jeez, I can't believe Steve Mould. Okay. You didn't even do the fucking experiment. And you're telling me you've got the evidence. Where do you have this evidence? Where do you have the evidence that pulleys don't conserve momentum? Where do you have this fucking physical experiment done? God, you're such liars. All right. If you appreciate Newton so much, well, frankly, okay, having read his convoluted descriptions, I have to say, shit, why didn't he first? I complained before that he wrote this crap in Latin. I mean, here he is, a perfectly reasonable Englishman. Why doesn't he use the fucking language that everybody in the country speaks? I mean, it's so pretentious and useless for them to have to translate it into English. And who knows what damage was done to it in that process. Let's see, you should take his experiment seriously. He has no experiment demonstrating kinetic energy. So again, this is such a lie that this crap that you can make free momentum has anything to do with this kinetic energy subject. Conserving mv squared is not something Newton said anything about, you liar. Okay. His pendulum experiment showed two things. No, they showed... Again, if he may say so. He didn't say he actually did any of these experiments. So it's just another lie where he's paraphrasing his experiments to say that he actually did the experiment where he got this reverse reaction. He didn't describe it as an actual experiment, fuckhead. And he said the very words, if I may so say. Why would you say those words if you weren't saying something that's kind of weird and abnormal? That's why they're there, is only because he's saying something that's speculative and silly. All right, momentum is not conserved the way you think it is. So again, this is not the this crap about your free momentum crap, which I've got. Again, this is their argument. A ball bearing is bouncing on a hardened steel anvil, and it bounces 226 times. Their argument is that every single time it hit the fucking anvil, it put twice the momentum into the anvil. That it moved the earth with twice the momentum that it had. So if I did this in space, I can give this anvil a gigantic momentum, by just initiating, putting 100 in, and I can get 10,000 out. Absolute nonsense. All right, the way you think it is. So this is not the subject, so I'm not going to read it. Fuck it. It's not the subject. Negative momentum is not the same as kinetic energy. Okay. Then there are the air track experiments done by university teachers. Yes, and we've all tried to make something out of them. They don't weigh the things, or else they film it from a crooked angle. They film it from, above and sideways. Okay. Never can you read the actual tape measure. The frame rates are horrible. So all bogus. And then I showed the classic Professor Lewin one with the fucking smeared clay on the damn cart, and I challenged you to explain to me how, looking at the two carts, how you could rationally defend stating that the one cart weighed twice as much when it was missing all the features necessary for it to weigh twice as much. All right. So again, just a lie and canard to bring this up. I've been over this so many fucking times. All right. Anyway, in all others all over the world. So again, this is like Despard just did the round thing, denting foam. So what? It's a useless experiment. It won't tell anybody the truth. It will only deceive people. I mean, smoke and mirrors are smoke and mirrors. And that's all you're saying is, well, they've done smoke and mirrors over and over again. Aren't you convinced by the smoke and mirrors? No, I'm not. I'm a smart person. Magicians don't fool me. Do you really believe there's a huge... So again, this huge... I've already answered all of this shit. There's no conspiracy. There's no conspiracy that creates religion. There's just asshole. Human beings are, generally speaking, assholes. They invent absolute shit garbage, okay, for no good reason. They see a bug and they think it's, Count Dracula come to suck their blood or some kind of weirdo shit. You can see people go into complete panic over, a ladybug flies by. People are superstitious, weird, stupid, ignorant piles of turd. All right, so that's what's been proven. You don't need a conspiracy, but don't you think, look, here's the plain statement, right? I mean, one of the most important events in Einstein's career was the Eddington experiment. And frankly, okay, anyone who's a science-interested person and says they don't want that experiment done from space, I'm saying, okay, the conspiracy is you really are religious people, you're faith people. You're jihadist for a cause, and you really don't give a shit about science, because nobody who gives a shit about the truth and gives a shit about science would argue they shouldn't bother doing an experiment that only takes 5 minutes from space with an average camera. I mean, it doesn't even have to be spectacular. It only takes 5 minutes, and you get 400 times more resolution, and you don't need an eclipse. I mean, it's a gigantic advantage. And anybody who defends them not doing that experiment or explaining somehow it's just an oversight that they, missed all these opportunities they've had over the last 50 years to do the experiment. They could have done it from the surface of the moon, So anyway, just such bullshit. Okay. No whistleblowers. Nobody wants to be the greatest physicist ever. No, you don't believe that. So I'm just saying you're religious shitheads. And so why do people believe a preposterous God theory? Why the fuck do they believe that garbage? And that's your explanation. It's the same reasoning. All the other physicists say so. Okay, all the little nerdy pothead morons fall for this wooey-wooical bullshit theories, and they're all invested in it. They're all wearing their little hats. They have a Pope, T-shirt, and they cost them $5, and so they're going to keep wearing it even if it is nonsense. You people are just such pathetic piles of pus. Yeah, so let's remember the context here. So years what this little scrolly thing up there says. I've been offering money to get somebody to respond to the actual arguments I made. Now, this is just silly, right? He quotes me as saying physics has never done these experiments. Now, that's an absolute fact. They haven't done shit. All right? I mean, even simple things like I argued, where you duplicate the force of gravity. So you give an elephant 1 mile an hour of velocity, and then give a mouse 1 mile an hour of velocity and put a scale on its side. And see if the mouse weighs mouse and the elephant weighs elephant. Well, then you know that all the force of gravity is momentum. It's just a mass and a velocity. Frankly, that's all there really is to it. It equals a net pressure being applied, and that's all there is. The force is just weight. It's a pressure. They haven't done any of these experiments. None of them. They haven't taken the pendulum and done the pendulum experiments, the 1 to 3 mass one in particular, and done any qualitative work at all to demonstrate that this free momentum thing happens. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so it's just insane for him to write 3 paragraphs responding to that with something other than, yeah, I also think physics ought to do these elemental experiments. They really ought to drop the 4 pounds 1 foot and the 1 pound 4 feet and demonstrate that those two quantities do the same work in the universe, that they can spin something the same amount, that they can do the same work. All right. That if I did it in a joule tank, I drop them in a joule tank, they'll heat the water the same amount. All right. So I'll read this last paragraph. But, this is just such a denial of the actual context, the actual arguments. Again, I challenged you in the video. You're quoting these. See, they just quote mine, the videos. See, I replay people's videos and respond to every fucking word they say. Nobody will do that to my videos. And again, I've offered them thousands of dollars to do it, and they won't do it. We can't find a physicist who will actually defend physics in this sense, where I make an argument, you respond to it. They won't do it. They can only make short videos, 3-minute videos. They can't make an argument video. All right, then there are the pendulum collision videos you have seen. So again, these are the dispar garbage videos, parallax all over the place, the shit camera, shit frame rates, junk all the way down. Okay, with all the different masses and string lengths. So again, this is just such a lie to say any of these are credible experiments. That these prove that the law of the lever doesn't work, and they prove that you can make free momentum. Because again, the free momentum argument is just so obvious that I can just keep increasing. I just hit a light thing into a heavy thing, increase the momentum, then I just bang that heavy thing into a heavier thing and increase the momentum again, and I just bang that, and it just goes on and on and on. And then I can just reverse the whole thing using pulleys or a lever and reverse the energy and just make it circular, make perpetual motion. So again, it's the diagram of a perpetual motion device. So you've proven free energy with Dispar's experiments. I'd say obviously you haven't, because the experiments are garbage. All right, so what, it doesn't matter whether you use the frames to estimate horizontal velocity or measure the lengths or angles. How is that possible? So I didn't say that. What are you saying? All right, with all the different masses and string lengths. And again, that's the whole point. He has a 7-inch string on the pendulum. Oh yeah, that's going to make it really easy to do. I mean, Newton used a 12-foot pendulum. All right, the results have been very close to what physics tells us. So a big lie. Okay, it doesn't matter whether you use frames to estimate horizontal. Okay, so I'm not even going to argue. There's no evidence that you've done any of this clinically or well. So that's just such a lie. And we're sitting here waiting on Brozo, right? It'll be a month pretty soon. So he said he was ready. He had the stuff. He's going to do the lever experiment. Where the fuck is it? All right. So then again, instead of countering any of the arguments I've made, specifically the spring argument, for example, where I've pointed out where nobody else has pointed out, that Yeah, as soon as you take an object, like if I have a spring and I oscillate it and the object is stuck to the spring, then Hooke's law applies. But as soon as I allow the object to be pushed away from the spring, that is, as soon as the spring can release the object, it doesn't apply anymore, because now the spring is still going to have the stored energy stuck in it. It can't get all of its energy into something if it isn't in contact with it, if it isn't touching it. So obviously, the lighter object I put in front of a spring, the more the spring will oscillate after launching the object. That's a statement I'm making. I'm saying it's an absolute fact of this physical universe that the lighter the object I put on a compressed spring, the more the spring will oscillate after the object has been launched. I'm saying that's an absolute fact. Where can you demonstrate it's not? And it's a significant fact then if you're going to use comparison results for different masses put in front of a spring, when it can be easily understood that, yeah, the light mass isn't going to get nearly the same amount of energy as the heavy masses, because the spring's going to be going faster after the light mass leaves, and it's going to be oscillating a lot slower after the heavy mass leaves. Absolute fact. Did you figure it out? Does some other physicist talk about it? So in the annals of your Catholicism, your catechism, all your little rules and all your little statements, is it in there anywhere that springs aren't very reliable in giving back energy? They're really reliable in collecting it, but they really suck at giving it back. Is that statement somewhere in your physics? Because I'm saying it's an absolute fact. So demonstrate it's not. Show me a piece of evidence indicating it's not the truth. That everything I just said about springs is absolutely true. No, that argument isn't here anywhere. All right. You say force, momentum, and energy are the same thing. Well, I'm clearly saying the word energy doesn't mean anything. I mean, realistically. Okay, it was invented much later in this conversation. And obviously, even the very idea that Newton was doing what, Galileo hadn't quite gotten to yet, which was trying to define causes of events. And so Newton was obsessed with photons and all that kind of stuff and the energy of photons. And so obviously Newton had this idea that there's this concept of force. And the concept of force is physically manifest in the motion of matter. And I'm sure that Newton he couldn't think of photons as anything else but being things. They couldn't be waves, because they had to be things that are actually transferring, pushing things. I mean, Newton was a push-averse person. But anyway, you say force, momentum, and energy are the same thing. I'm saying there's absolutely no difference. Momentum does work, and momentum is force. You can't distinguish them. Anything called a force has momentum, and it will give it to objects. Okay, so that's just a fact. And the difference is that big things bang into each other. The little stuff, the force, sticks or doesn't stick. So the force either is Sisyphus, it's pushing you, or it's not pushing you. But that's how the force works. You absorb it. So things that are moving have absorbed a force. They have Sisyphuses pushing them. All right, you can't even calculate what happens in elastics of the lyre. Okay, I have no obligation. I'm just going to block you, and so fuck this. I'm not going to put up with this shit. All right, it's just absolute. There's nothing to calculate, okay? The argument is MV in, MV out. What do I have to calculate anything? I'm saying momentum is always conserved. That is, it will always, you can always find where it went, as Feynman would argue. Okay, it's blocks. There's only a certain number of them. That's all there are. And there's always the same after and before an event. The same amount of mass, total, mv, exists. And so you can have a lot of mass moving small velocities, or you can have very few masses moving high velocities. But that's it. It seems very vague to me. Fuck you. If force is motion, what determines how fast that motion is generated? Well, as I've already pointed out, about 2,000-3,000 times, force, okay, in the sense of we're going to talk about photons and gravity and all of the speed of light things. They're obviously moving the speed of light. What determines how fast? The speed of light, the speed of force. I've used those exact words, the speed of force. That's what it should be called of, because magnetism moves the same speed, gravity moves the same speed, light moves the same speed. Force sticks to mass. Mass is electrons and protons, and it moves them. You move because your electrons and protons are moved, not any other reason. There's only one universe. Electrons and protons exist in it. We're a bizarre perversion of that universe. But everything I just did happened because electrons and protons were forced to do it by force. Okay. What determines how fast that motion is generated, or what determines reflection in collision? So anyway, I've just explained all this 2 by 2. It's all on the website. Both websites have tons of stuff on all of these subjects. So fuck you. I'm not going to personally educate you. You even wrote 25 times the force does not equal 5 times the velocity. Yes, that's your claim, and it's wrong. Okay. As if somebody has said it does. All right. So there's no point in arguing with you people. This is the fact of your what your theory states is true. There's no way around it. It's your theory. Your theory says it. And it clearly is opposed to what Newton said. So I don't. There's no point in having the conversation. You're just absolute liars. You're saying there's not a quadratic increase. So of course there is a quadratic increase. Force and velocity don't even have the same unit. So again, it's just idiotic. So Newton says it clearly. 1 unit of force, 1 unit of velocity. 2 units of force, 2 units of velocity. 3 units of force, 3 units of velocity. Obviously, in Newton's opinion, it's the same. So, fuck you. Additional question. Why do levers and pulleys allow me to hit 4 mass 1 distance or 1 mass 4 distance with the same energy? 4 mass 1 distance, or... Well, where did you show that? So show it. There's no evidence that they do that. This distance thing. The distance thing is proving the velocity. The 1 mass goes 4 units of distance? What's its velocity? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what matters, is its MV. So again, there's no point. This is, again, like arguing the rolling ball thing. Okay, they're just not going to account for the fact that it's not about a distance. And the lever certainly doesn't do 4 times the distance. So I don't even know why he's saying this, really. A 4 mass going 1 distance and a 1 mass going 4 distances. So that's the example I did with the balance. 4 distances is 4 times the velocity. So I don't even understand. Additional question. Why do levers and pulleys allow me to lift 4 mass 1 distance or 1 mass 4 distance with the same energy? That's not the argument. So this is what he's doing. So he's going based on distance. So 4 units of distance on a lever is 4 units of velocity. 4 units of distance in gravity is only 2 units of velocity. So that's the game he's playing. Clearly, levers aren't going by free fall rates. Okay, so nothing's free falling on the lever. All right, so nothing's doing the gravitational acceleration rates. So that's the catch. All right. So he's not conceding that those MVs mean that they have uneven energy. So he's saying the same energy can make different kinetic energies. So we know that the 1 mass going 4 distances is going to have 4 times the kinetic energy of the 1 mass going 1 distance. And so that's the big lie. He's giving you the impression that these two things do the same work when they obviously don't. They have the completely different definition of their capacity to do work. So how can you say You created two things with completely different capacities to do work with the same energy. You put the same energy in, and somehow you have two different kinetic energies out. How is that possible? So what else? It's just all so fucking deceptive to play this game. Additional question, when the answer to that question is obvious in the sense that you just implied that these two things produce the same output kinetic energy when they don't. These are completely different kinetic energies. A 4 mass going one distance, completely different kinetic energy than a 1 mass going 4. Completely different kinetic energies. Oh, such a fucking piece of shit. Alright, so just fuck off. I'm not going to bother. I already answered most of the questions in the other comment, so I'm just done with you. Fuck you. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll come back to this crap. But there's no point. The Bruce Yearney experiment just defeats all three of these first three things right there is defeated by the fact that, yes, 1 mass with all the expansion of the rubber band, you get, say, a velocity of 10. Right? Now I have 2 masses. I have a velocity of 5. 5 here and 5 here. So I have the same MV. Twice the mass, half the velocity. Then I can do a 2 mass and a 1 mass and have them collide. And I still have the same relationship. And then the 4 to 1. And it's still the same relationship. All there is the MV. Total mass moving velocities. And that's all you can create. And so if you put a person in between all of those crashes, the person will feel the same impact, except in the case where you change the momentum. So as long as they have the same momentum, then the person's going to feel the same impact energy. But as soon as they have different momentums, well, then you'll push the person and they'll be spared absorbing some of the energy. Oh, these people are just such liars. All right, anyway. Despicable. So they can't find a single person that can make response videos. They can't find anybody who can draw anything. Okay, illustrate it, do a force diagram, show how, the 1 mass can't move twice the velocity on the lever. Draw it and show how it just can't do it for some reason. Some reason a third of the momentum gets destroyed because the lever just can't push light things faster. That's their theory. All right. Till the next time and such. Their theory is basically you can't throw something that weighs half as much twice as fast. Bullshit, you can't.